always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to Perfection. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. That last line in yesterday's program about those who prefer the traditional clock face or the digital format struck a chord with me. Marlene Tanzer in the Washington Post some years back wrote, and I quote, "They must wonder if society has achieved the pleasure of perfection or the nightmare of precision." This hour, Perfection with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Elton John with The One and Atlantic Starr, Always. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. My computers at home are basically obsolete. The software is up to date, but the hardware is now considered old. It's amazing to think that I can even say that today. We've come so far, so fast. I've always liked this quote from someone who does know a thing or two about our imperfect world. Bill Gates, from The Road Ahead, published by Viking, wrote, and I quote, "Success is a lousy teacher. It seduces people into thinking that they can't lose. And it's an unreliable guide to the future." What now seems the perfect business plan or latest technology may soon be as out of date as the 8-track tape player, the vacuum tube television, or the mainframe computer. Unquote. This hour, Perfection with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Train, Calling All Angels, and Daniel Powter at the End of a Bad Day. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Nicholas Negroponte from Wired, and writing during the infancy of the internet, said, and I quote, "The most astonishing part of the internet is that nobody is in charge. We take for granted some form of authority, some hierarchy in almost everything. In childhood, it's from parents and teachers. In adult life, it's from bosses and government. While we may not always be pleased with where we stand in the hierarchy, at least we understand it. The net, a reliable system made up of loosely connected and imperfect parts that work because nobody is in control, shakes up all our centralist notions of hierarchy." An excerpt from Nicholas Negroponte from Wired, some years back. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Deborah Cox and Beautiful You Are, Counting Crows in a Big Yellow Taxi, and Coldplay and Viva, La Vida. I'm Don Jackson with a perfect hour for Lovers and Other Strangers. Somerset Maugham wrote, "The only thing which makes it possible to regard this world we live in without disgust is the beauty which now and then men create out of the chaos. The pictures they paint, the music they compose, the books they write, and the lives they lead. Of all these, the richest in beauty is a life well lived. That is the perfect work of art. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. RyanDan with The Face, and Paul Anka with Anthea, Anka, and Do I Love You. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Do you remember a story I featured, many years ago, about the cracked pot? If you do, then you'll appreciate this thought on simplicity. Frank Norris, in Complete Works, published by Doubleday, wrote, and I quote, "Once I had occasion to buy a silver soup ladle. The obliging salesman brought forth quite an array of them, including ultimately one that was as plain and unadorned as the unclouded sky, and about as beautiful. But the price, it was nearly double any of the others. You see," the salesman exclaimed, "in this highly ornamental ware, the flaws don't show. This plain one has to be the very best. Any defect would be apparent." There, if you please, is a final basis of comparison of all things. The bare dignity of the unadorned that may stand before the world all unashamed in the consciousness of perfection. Unquote. Frank Norris, in Complete Works, published by Doubleday. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Taylor Swift and You Belong to Me, and Michael Buble and Haven't Met You Yet. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Thomas Merton from The Seven-Story Mountain, published by Random House, wrote, and I quote, "The logic of worldly success rests on a fallacy that our perfection depends on the thoughts and opinions and applause of others. A weird life it is to be living always in somebody else's imagination, as if that were the only place in which one could become real." Thomas Merton from The Seven-Story Mountain, published by Random House. Some interesting thoughts on success. And finally, Eric Severide, featured in Not So Wild a Dream, published by Athenaeum, wrote, "Man himself is a precarious balance between love and hate, generosity and selfishness, peaceableness and aggressiveness. He is not perfectible, but he is improvable, and nothing in his history or his nature obliges one to abandon belief in him. He may indeed be forever trapped between earth and a glimpse of heaven, but he will hold to the glimpse as he must." Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.